so far on that?
Nope.
So start time, run time, now we get to the days. So you're watering 3 days a week. So the indicators here are, normally it's a raindrop.
Oh, I see.
If you're actually canceling or omitting the day, it's got a circle slash through it.
Okay.
So right now, as you can see, this is the weekday menu. So Monday is off, Tuesday has got a raindrop, so you're watering on Tuesday. Wednesday's off, Thursday's on, Friday's off, Saturday's on, and then Sunday's off. So you're actually watering when this was an auto run. Plus, remember, it wasn't just 3 days per week, right? You're watering twice on those days. So you weren't watering 3 times a week, you were actually watering 6 times per week. You've spoiled the child right now. So potentially, yes. Your landscape, I treat like a 2-year-old child. If we spoil the child, it's gonna expect it. So it's like giving Junior or Pammy or Susie giant banana split every night after dinner, right? They're expecting that. When you take that away, they're gonna throw a fit, right? Same thing potentially could happen with the landscape. So what happens a lot of time is, we're gonna set you from the 3 days a week, plus not watering twice on those days. We're gonna restrict it now to the once, right? And only twice per week. So now we're going from 6 times watering to 2. So potentially, yes, Tommy or Sally, Susie, is gonna probably throw a fit. So the best course of action going forward is to make the schedule changes, but then also we might have to increase the time, right? So we're not gonna give them a banana split every night, but we still might have to give them a banana split, right? Until we can get to that point to where it's only on special occasions. Does that make sense? So you don't wanna just shock factor. You can do that, and a lot of times, landscapes are resilient. They'll struggle for a while and they'll get to that point. But is it the best course of action? A lot of times it's not, especially nowadays, because landscape to replace is costly. A pallet of floor tan, which is your St. Augustine, is I think on average right now about 200 to 250 a pallet, which only covers 200 square feet. So literally it's like a 10 by 20. It's not a lot of coverage. And then a lot of times, depending on what sod farm you're getting it from, they don't put a lot of soil backing on it. So it's, you don't really want to replace.
Right, no.
So what we'll do is, you're probably gonna offset, but you're still possibly gonna still have a higher bill. Because we're gonna take all that watering, but we're gonna shift it into 2 days, and we're gonna extend the times a little bit. And then give it a couple of weeks. We are starting to dry out a little bit, but there is a storm brewing in the Atlantic right now. Potentially in another week we could get a big storm come through. I don't know, the track is kind of coming our way on that. We might get some outskirt rains and stuff like that, but for the most part we should start getting into our drier phase, the fall season. Right, but the side over here might be shade protected from the neighbor's house, plus if there's a tree over here, and then that side of the house, so on and so forth. So you want to look at each area of the yard as its own microclimate, and it should be adjusted appropriately that way. Also too, vegetation type, each area of the yard has its own vegetation. Your shrubbery requires different amounts of water than your grass does. Your turf areas are the heavy required water. There's a lot of compounding situations that go into actually doing irrigation properly. So to change this right now, the mouse or the indicator is on Monday, which is off, which that's correct. If I make a selection, so I made a minus selection, it auto jumped to the next one, which is Tuesday, or I can use the arrow key. Either way, I can either make a selection or I can move the mouse physically. So right now we're on Tuesday. So if I wanted to leave Tuesday, I would just arrow past that. So now I'm on Wednesday, but we don't want Tuesday, so we're gonna cancel it by hitting the minus. Wednesday's off. Thursday is on, so we're gonna leave Thursday. Friday's off. Saturday is on, we're gonna turn Saturday off, and then now we're on Sunday and we wanna turn Sunday on. So now we're on the correct schedule. So now we're on the Thursday, Sunday. And then also I'm gonna show you, I'm gonna go to Sunday. Okay, so I'm on Sunday right now. So if you wanna get in a little closer on this one. So this is the weekday menu. So it just gives us a Monday through Sunday and then what program we're on, right? So as you can see right now we're flashing on Sunday. So the mouse is on Sunday. If I press the right arrow key one more, it changes to an odd. Okay, so it knows the calendar day. So this would be an odd day selection.
Okay.
So you would be watering 3 to 4 times a week depending on how the calendar fell.
Okay.
Also, you can change that. If you don't want odd, you can do even days. So that's an odd even.
Okay.
The reason why that's in there is because certain parts of the country are an odd day or an even day watering. So they had to program that in there too. Because as a manufacturer, I want to be able to sell my timer across the board. So I want to make sure that those program options are in there. Okay, but we don't do that here in Florida. In our area here, St. John's sets it specifically by a day.
Okay.
So we want the weekday. Okay. But that's not the only selection on the watering days menu option.
Okay.
Okay. If I press the right arrow key again, this comes up to a whole different screen. Okay. Now the weekdays are there, right? But it also says what? Interval. It says interval here, and then we have a numerical number that's flashing, which is on number 1. So it'll do 1 through 31. Okay. So what that means is if I leave it as 1, I'm going to water every day.
Oh, okay.
If I change that to a 2, I'm watering every second day. So I'm skipping a day. Every third day. See where this one can get you in trouble? Okay. So this is called the intervals program on the weekday watering menu. You don't want this one either. Okay. So what we do is, right now we're on the interval selection, the number. So if I press the right arrow key, I can actually go to days left, so I can set that, or I can go to I can actually omit certain days of the week too. So I can customize the interval program, but I don't want this program. So what I do with a lot of customers is I go ahead and cancel all these days. I just canceled every day of the week. So if you accidentally got to this, you would never water and you would go, what the heck's going on? You would go back to your program and you go, wait a minute, that's on the wrong program. Okay. So now we're flashing over here on the odd even. If I press again, now I'm back to my weekday.
Okay.
So there's a weekday specific menu option on your watering days. I know this is confusing.
No.
But I want to walk you through step by step.
Yeah.
Because this is the main part of what the irrigation system audit is. It's not the physical running of the sprinklers. That's easy. This is what catches people off guard. So this is where I want to spend the majority of our time. Okay. So this is a weekday menu option. Then you have the odd even right option, which is another one. And then you have the intervals. So just be careful on which program you're on. And what it is this timer is not like an enter button like some other timers where you actually have to physically push enter to lock in your selection. This one is not that way. Whatever's displaying on the screen is what you're locking in. So if I had that on that intervals program and I keyed past it, you lock that in. Pump, that's basically on or off. It doesn't matter, but that's if you're on a well. If you're pulling out of a lake, pond, stream, if you're down there, you could be pulling out of the lake, supplementing your water. But then we would require you to have a backflow on the potable service because you have alternative water. Right now you're still required to have a backflow, which you should have because you're irrigating with our potable water. So to protect the public water source, the backflow is required.
Okay.
Because you're internally connected. And then the backflow is required to be tested by a certified tester every 2 years. And we'll send you notification on that. We haven't done this neighborhood yet, but we are about to.
Okay.
Probably come through the area. We'll do the survey. Because we physically have to survey the entire area.
Okay.
So we have to go lot by lot and look and see what the criterias are, and then spend a little bit more time on the ones that are close to the pond. Because if they are pulling out of the lake, then that puts them in a different category of hazard. But yours is just internally connected irrigation is what we call it. So we're looking for internal isolation. So the backflow is required to be on the irrigation system only. It's not a containment where it has to be on the potable meter. So your backflow is probably on the side of the house somewhere by your valves. Like their neighbors across the street, that's a PVB, pressure vacuum breaker.
Oh, okay.
That stands up, and that's actually a proper installation. It has to be 12 inches higher than the highest outlet.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, that's why they're sticking above the ground. We don't allow backflows in the ground. So But that's your pump here.
Should the pump be on though?
You don't have a pump.
So it doesn't matter if it's on or
So
off.
on or off, that doesn't matter.
Okay.
And all that does is that's going to send a signal through this connection here.
I see. Okay.
So that's what that P stands for on that terminal right there. So when the irrigation timer turns on Thursday morning at 3 a.m., it turns on. It's going to send a signal through that terminal right there. So if you were connected to a well or a pump, it's going to turn that pump on. It's a control switch, basically is what that is. And then the MV stands for master valve, but there's not a lot of master valves installed. What that is, I call it the insurance policy, is the way I always explain it to my customers when I did irrigation. It's basically the valve before the valves, if that makes sense. So it's an insurance policy, so the lines aren't under constant pressure all the time. So there's one line going to a master valve, which that master valve closes and shuts off when the system's not on, and it doesn't let the rest of the line stay pressurized. So if you had a line break before the valves, you're gonna have a leak, a constant leak. If it's after the valves, the leak is only leaking when the system is on for that valve, right, for that zone. But if I have a master valve that's opening and closing when the system controller is turning on, it's not under constant pressure. And the reason why you would do something like that, normally they do like a manifold system where they put all the valves in the same area, but some properties aren't that way. They put valves all over the yard, which old applications, they didn't put a manifold, they put them everywhere, but you got pressurized lines going everywhere. So what you would do is you would put the master valve in off of the main line supply. So that way it wouldn't have, like if you had a tree in the front yard, the line wouldn't break and it wouldn't constantly be running.
Okay.
But it would run once the master valve opened. That's what that basically does. And it's really, in a traditional application nowadays with a manifold system, there's really no need for a master valve type setup. Unless you had like an indexing valve, which is old technology. It's it's like a satellite hub. There's one pipe that comes in and multiple zone valves going out, and it's got an indexing valve. You can't actually independently control the zones themselves because the indexer is spring loaded. So it goes in a clockwise direction, so it indexes around.
I see. Okay.
And it's not the best application for irrigation. And the only way the indexer actually does is when it depressurizes, the spring actually checks it and indexes it to the next zone. So you're currently at 100%. So that's what these lines are representing right here. So each one of these line bars right here are 10% increments. So basically what that means is you're currently watering for 45 minutes, 30 minutes, 45 and 60, your running times. If I change the seasonal adjustment to 50%, I just decreased your running times by 50%. It's a quick way to adjust across the board your running time.
Okay.
So in the instance where we're at, where I was suggesting that we're gonna have to water longer, instead of leaving it at 100%, we can put it at what? Like 120, 130, 140. It's gonna automatically, we're not gonna have to physically change the times, even though we can. We can just increase the seasonal adjustment and it does that automatically for us.
Great.
It's an ease of operation is the explanation, but a lot of people look at it and go, oh, it knows that it's summer. It's no. It's not that smart. Some, like Orbitz calls it budget, is their selection term that they use. I like that term better than seasonal, because this, like I said, it does not know that it's the summer. But what it does is it does by incremental measurements. So yours goes by 5% increments.
Wow.
So 300%, we just tripled your watering time. Because zone number 1
It's 2 hours. Wow.
was 45 minutes.
All right.
3 times that is, it only does solid numbers, so it won't do the half.
Okay.
So that's why it's 210.
Okay.
Because if you actually multiply it out, 45 times 3, it's not. But it goes to even numbers. But that's what your seasonal adjustment does. The rainy season, where it's raining, you can rely on your rain sensor. But then also too, if you know that it's raining a lot and you want to save in your wallet and be able to go take the wife for a steak dinner on Friday night, bring it down 85, 75, something like that. It's just cutting a couple minutes out of the zone.
Okay.
But it's saving you water in the long run.
All right.
So it's a way to manipulate the system by not having to physically change a whole lot of selections. It's a way to go to one setting and adjust from there.
Okay.
Solar sync, you don't have that. It's actually going to error out. It's going to say ERR on the display. So it's a solar optical array that actually it's an accessories piece that you actually have to purchase separately, and then you tie it in. It's supposed to track the track of the sun and all that, and auto adjust and all that stuff. I don't put a lot of faith in that.
Okay.
The manufacturer I kind of argue with the manufacturer. I've been to the conferences and stuff like that, and I've asked about it, but they swear by it. But that's what solar sync is. Operating a specific zone. So say for instance, I did work on zone 3. I wanted to run zone 3, but I didn't want to run the whole program. I could go right to zone 3, and then it won't automatically run right now. So I do have to take it from manual, so whatever I want to run, and then flip it to run. So as soon as I flip it to run, it's going to turn on. So station 3 runtime, and my little sprinkler comes up. So that's what that does. And then off is off. You want to make sure that if it is ever turned off, you want the display to display off. This is a mechanical switch with electronic contacts. Eventually they will wear out. I've had people where they thought it was off and it wasn't. It was still in run position. So it was still water.